Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are QBs 1 and 2 of the 2025 NFL draft. But there are more QB-needy teams inside the top 10. And what are their options? How should they handle it? We're going to tell you why they should maybe draft a guy out of Penn State or get a veteran and wait to day 2. We'll talk about that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where we bring you championship level content each and every single podcast. DP, today's show, man, we are going through quarterback needy teams. How should they approach the draft, right? Should they move up in the draft? Should they move back? Should they sign a free agent, right, and pair it with a young quarterback in this draft? Wait to day 2, right? Just the different draft strategies that quarterback-needy teams. And I'm going to say this, man. There are a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. It might not be enough quarterbacks out there, DP. So we're going to have that fun conversation. We're going to talk about the best day 2 quarterback prospects and wrap it up with college football playoff quarterbacks who need big games. And I think my answer is going to be rather interesting. DP, let's get this thing started, man. Quarterback needy teams, how should they approach the draft?
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. QB needy teams, Keith. We know when you look at Tankathon, you look at the current draft order, Keith, the top 2 teams are the top 2 teams that need quarterbacks. Las Vegas Raiders right now have the first overall pick, and the New York Giants.
BP, let me say this. Let me say this. This has made it so much easier, too, because remember there was a stretch, right, where New England was number 1 and Jacksonville was number 2. It's like, what am I supposed to do with this?
You knew a trade was coming. You know, like if it started today, somebody was trading that first overall pick. Not in this situation, Keith. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I look at those 2 teams. I think they stay at the top. I don't think either one of them lose another game. Not because they're not. Well, just
you don't think either one of them wins another game?
Win another game. Yeah, okay. I don't think either one of them wins another game. I don't think the Giants are going to try and win another game. The players might. The coaching staff is not going to let it happen. The GM is not going to let it happen. I think the same thing in Las Vegas. So for those 2 teams, it's chalk for them. You're picking the litter. It's either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, right? Because right now those are the top 2 quarterbacks for everybody, right? So you look at it, and if you're one of those teams, like, hey, if we have them graded close, we're happy with either one. And you put that. I'm not even taking, what is it, 5 minutes, however long the clock, 10. I'm not taking all that. Roger Goodell, here's the card. I'm taking my quarterback. But for those teams at the bottom, Keith, of the top 10, pick 6, the Tennessee Titans, pick 7, the New York Jets, pick 8, the Cleveland Browns. All 3 of those teams need an upgrade at the quarterback position. Will Levis has been very up and down. I think he has not given us any reason to say you get another year for the most part. He had a little stretch where it was maybe 2 games. You're like, okay, maybe he's turning the corner. And then it just kind of it went back to what it was.
It's very confusing.
Very confusing. But that was his college career, too. It was confusing watching him in college. The Jets, it's the Aaron Rodgers situation. Woody Johnson wanted to bench him after like the first 2 games or something crazy like that. The owner wanted them benched. He says, I want to keep playing, but it might not be in New York. We don't know what's going to happen there. And then, of course, the Deshaun Watson situation in Cleveland. So we know that, like we said, the top 2 teams, they're chalk. They get their quarterback. The only, I guess, for me, those 3 teams, Titans, Jets, and Browns, your only hope is that as a fan base specifically, is that your staff, your scouts, your GM, your coaches, that they find solace in one of these quarterbacks, and like a Drew Allar, a guy that's 6'5", 230, 240, rocket arm, really mobile, and he showcased that he can help engineer an offense that truly doesn't have a lot of weapons. right? So it's like you watch the tape, you see the mistakes. It was like, okay, how do we compartmentalize those mistakes, right? Keith, like, are those mistakes a young quarterback is not seeing it, or is it a mistake of a young quarterback put in a position they shouldn't be put into to carry the entire team on his back? Because we didn't recruit well enough at wide receiver. We got a tight end and 2 running backs, and that's all we got for you, Drew Allar. So I think for me, I only have 2 quarterbacks right now graded as first-round picks: Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. Yep. The way I look at it right now, from just watching the tape on these guys throughout the season, and of course we could do deep dives. We're about to hit the playoffs and everything. Drew Allar is right now the only guy I would feel comfortable with in our situation of taking round 1. Maybe not top 10, but round 1. So if you're one of those teams you want to trade back, acquire more picks for next year, stuff like that, Keith, you can do that, and then grab a Drew Allar, still have that 5th-year option on them. But right now, the top 2 teams are the only ones that really feel comfortable with where they are, because the rest of the teams, they're kind of in no man's land right now.
Yeah, DP. And I think for those teams stuck in no man's land, right? You mentioned the Titans, the Browns, the Jets. I don't think you should reach, right? I'm trying to remember what draft that was. If that was the 2012 draft. Remember that draft with Jake Locker and what it was.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and they got like EJ Manuel, I believe, or just variations of those drafts, right? Kind of you put them together and combine them. Is that those are kind of reaches on quarterback prospects, and reaching on a quarterback, right? Is not, that doesn't do you any good. Like, having a bad quarterback is worse than not having a quarterback, right? Like, what's the point in that? And so I think that if I'm those teams, DP, I kind of float and I look at some of these veteran guys, right? You look at potentially what are the Seahawks going to do with Geno Smith moving forward, right? You look at Jameis Winston, who is probably my favorite NFL player. And, if we've been on this podcast, I've been, pounding the table for Jameis. It don't matter if we win or lose, baby, as long as the vibes are good, right? As long as the vibes.
We out here playing for vibes with J-Mo, man. We out here with vibes for J-Mo, baby.
That's the thing, DP. If you lose, you'd rather lose with good vibes, right? I don't want to be losing and just losing, right? So you got Jameis Winston on a serious note, but at least I would say this: he gives you a fighting chance, right? Like some 100%. Quarterbacks, as many interceptions Jameis Winston throws, some quarterbacks cannot do what
their offense didn't look good until he took over.
And you can say this, that Cleveland will probably be a 500 team under Jameis Winston because they lost games that they wouldn't have lost early on, right? Like, and so
they should have beat Denver, but the pick 6 got him. You know what I mean? But yeah, he's elevated. Jerry Jeudy looks like Jerry Jeudy again.
No, the Jerry Jeudy we haven't seen since Alabama. Right at the end of the day, like even his time in Denver. So I think wide receivers are going to be happy to play with him. He got David Njoku involved, right? So Jameis could be a potential option, but then also Sam Darnold, right? Could be a sneaky pick. And I'm gonna tell you this: do not go back to New York, Sam Darnold. Don't do it. Avoid New York. Avoid New York. Avoid Carolina, right? Stay away from those teams. Just stay away. I don't want to see you back there. I'm happy you're a good quarterback, right? So I look at veterans, right, and what they could potentially do, and then drafting a young guy to kind of supplement that. Just because we mentioned with Cleveland, with Tennessee, with New York, they have dysfunctional stuff going on right there around the quarterback situation. I think Tennessee may be the cleanest as far as, hey, this Will Levis situation is not working. Let's just move on to the next guy. But it's still somewhat a little bit dysfunctional. You think about Callahan, a time and anticipatory thrower. Like, look, you're going on with him. I may be wrong, but I think it's year 2. And if it is, right, you're still going into another year, and you look at it from that perspective to where your leash is short, right? So you want somebody that's proven that can come in and win, and then you don't know and I don't know what the cap stuff is with Kirk Cousins, right? But even potentially Kirk Cousins, there's many interceptions he's throwing. He's better than any quarterback Tennessee has had in the past 15 years, right? At the end of the day. So still take
good point.
Yeah, still take Kirk, and at least he can potentially make you competitive in the AFC South, which, if we completely honest, DP, has probably been one of the most disappointing divisions in all of football, right? And so I think that you have to look at veteran free agents, and then you have to look at day 2 quarterback prospects, which segue great until our next segment, DP, because let's talk about this. If we're only going to take 2 quarterbacks in the first round, right? Which day 2 quarterback prospects should teams be circling and have their eyes on for round 2, round 3? Let's have that conversation coming up next.
Today's episode is sponsored by Built Rewards. If you're a renter, listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries and or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks and is completely free to join. Earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. Redeem points for flights, hotel stays, and even future rent payments. With over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program, the possibilities are endless. Guys, I'm telling you right now, you have access to unique experiences that are exclusive to Built members. Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. So don't wait. Start earning your rewards today. For those QB needy teams, Keith, day 2, like you said, I like the approach of getting a veteran, whether that's a Sam Darnold, a Jameis Winston. If Kirk Cousins, that situation in Atlanta doesn't rectify, he doesn't flip the switch and get back to playing early season ball to close out the season, like Michael Penix might be playing a lot sooner than people expected. You know what I mean? And that could open the door for a potential trade of getting Kirk Cousins out of there, right? So if you are a team like the Tennessee Titans, like the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns, right? And you need a quarterback. I think when you look at day 2 of the draft, there's viable options, right? Like I said, right now, Drew Allar, like this for him is a lot of projection, but this playoff run, if he rips and runs it, he tears it up, he's going to probably be a first-round pick if he declares, right? The youth, the age is on the side. He's 6'5", 235, all of the tools in the world. But you look at Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers, Keith, the 2 guys that we, like, as a draft community, looked at and said, man, like, those are 2 first-round picks in the summer, right? Mm-hmm. At minimum, those are first-round picks. Carson Beck was QB1. I think if you're a team that, okay, you assess your situation. Okay, we got receivers. We got a solid offensive line. We can run the ball. We got the right coaching staff. We need a quarterback, right? And I think you look at Carson Beck and you say, okay, if I put you in a positive situation with weapons, everything else is in line. We get the 2023 version of Carson Beck rather than the 2024 version of Carson Beck. And I think if that's what you're getting, you're happy about that, because the 2023 version of Carson Beck looked like a franchise quarterback, looked like a guy. And even in 2024, he's still throwing with anticipation. He's still throwing with timing. It was more so, hey, I don't have the same type of weapons. I am doing a little too much. I'm putting a little bit too much on myself, like putting the cart before the horse. He was just doing a little too much at times this year. And I think if putting him in the right situation, you can get a really good NFL quarterback from Carson Beck, but it's going to be situation based. And that's how I always felt with him. It's got to be the right situation. Same thing with Quinn Ewers, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that 100%. I'm going to go with this, DP, and we didn't bring this name up. Kind of name that program status has, I think, affected him too, but also there's been ups and downs, and that's Jalen Milroe, a guy we don't talk about. And then, when we talked about this preseason, right, and everybody said, what, that Jalen Milroe reminds us of Jalen Hurts. Well, Jalen Milroe can't be Jalen Hurts without doing what Jalen Hurts did, right? And that's have the questions of inaccuracies, right, consistency, things like that. But also you see Jalen Hurts in the NFL with the Philadelphia Eagles, right? There's high level play, right? And when he's rolling, he's on at the end of the day. But then there's sometimes there variances in his accuracy, right? His ability to see the field clearly and consistently. And I think that's what you have with Jalen Hurts. But I think back in around 1, day 2 quarterback prospect, right? Because even coming out of the summertime, and I know we talked about it right on our staff calls, I had a round 2 grade on Jalen Milroe, right? Just some of the same things. And I think it's just been a repeat of last year, right? There where there's some really, really high moments and like, oh man, that's top 10 quarterback, like in the NFL type throws. And then there are moments where there's some lapses to where you're like, I'm not quite sure what he's seen there, right? And it's not even just coverages, it's protections and sliding protections, identifying blitzers, like things like that I talked about in the summer that I think has kind of happened again this year, DP. But Jalen Milroe is a guy that I would be excited in round 2 because he has played a lot of football, right? He's played in a lot of high-level moments at the end of the day. So I don't think he's afraid from that perspective. It's just like, hey, can we get this guy, mold him, put him in the right situation? And I think he's a better runner than Jalen Hurts. And I think Jalen, you know who Jalen, he's kind of tailoring to? Remember when Dak Prescott first got in the NFL? Dak was running like read option stuff, right? And he'll keep it, right? Like he can give you 40 yards, 50 yards on the ground. But I think maybe if it's due to injuries and age, right, Dak has become more and more a pocket passer and an average quarterback when you're talking about mobility, right? And I think Jalen is kind of, if you ask me, I think he's tailoring more that way, right, to becoming the pocket passer and average mobility type of quarterback. So I look at that, and then the other guy I want to bring up, DP, because I think he can be a sneaky fit for a lot of teams. Dillon Gabriel. This is a guy that's played a lot of football at the end of the day, and going to bring it up, right? The Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa in that situation. Right? Dillon's with another left-handed quarterback. Bring him in that situation. You put him with Jalen Waddle, you put him with Tyreek Hill, because at the end of the day, the whole season cannot bank on if Tua Tagovailoa is healthy. He showed you that, you know what, he's a warrior. I compliment him. You want to go out there, you don't want your brand to be the concussion guy, but I have to protect myself and my team also, right? That when you out 3-4 games, the whole season cannot go down the pipe. No,
100%. I think with Dillon Gabriel, man, and like watching Dillon Gabriel in that game against Penn State. Penn State is a good defense. By the way,
do. I was surprised. I'll say this, DP. I was surprised that either team scored that many points. I thought that was lining up to me like I would have definitely bet the under. I was going 20-17 or something like that.
Yeah, one of those like hard-fought, hard-nosed, just grinded out games. It was like, no, all of us are scoring. Like both sides of both the offenses were scoring. And, Drew Allar accounted for 4 touchdowns. You know what I mean? I think Dillon Gabriel threw 4 touchdowns in that game. His ability to make plays off script, off schedule, on the move, maybe to throw on the move, having the mobility that he has where he can do some QB keeper stuff or just simply extending the play with his legs, keeping his eyes downfield. If nothing's there, I become a run option myself, right? You think about putting them in one of those West Coast offenses, get them under center, and you look at what we're seeing with Bryce Young. What we've seen, the good parts of Kyler Murray. What we've seen, it's like a Brock Purdy. I think that Dillon Gabriel has that type of ability to, again, be a mobile threat, create with his legs when need to, but can play on time, hit the underneath throws, things of that. That's what all those, like, except for, I think the only one is Kyler has the natural arm talent to stretch all levels of the defense. Like he can actually throw it down the field more consistently. But all of those guys, especially Bryce and Brock Purdy, especially, they excel getting the ball out quick. You allow your playmakers to just make plays for you. And when we need you to make something happen, can you do it? Yes, you have that in your bag. Cool. So I think with Dillon Gabriel, that game against Penn State, that Dillon Gabriel could be a potential day 2 pick, a third, back into the 3rd round type of pick. The thing I think teams are going to, again, it's going to be the physical tools, right? Bo Nix was older, but Bo Nix was bigger, athletic, and a better arm. How are teams going to grade him out physically is going to be a big thing because he's like 5'10", 5'11", and his arm is around Tua's. Tua's got an NFL arm, right? You don't have a great arm, but it's good enough, as we've seen, to get a big check. He's gotten paid. You know what I mean? You don't pay a guy if you don't think he can get the job done. So I like Dillon Gabriel. I look at him. Quinn Ewers, just to me, Keith, Quinn Ewers has played too much ball to look confused post snap. Whereas that's just weird to me.
I think he's pressing, DP. I think the pressure of the Arch Manning situation is getting to him to where he's like, I don't think it's confused, is that he's not taking what's there and he sees what's there, but it's like, I want to make a play, so I'm going there, right? Like I'm still trying to, it's like playing Madden, right? Like you determine pre-snap, hey, I'm launching this thing 50 yards. I don't care if it's single coverage, double coverage, I'm launching it 50 yards, baby. Like, and I think that's what Quinn Ewers is doing at this point. And like I said, I think it's due to pressure. And I think that honestly, and this sounds crazy, we may get a better NFL version of Quinn Ewers than this year the college version if he's put in a different situation.
I think you're right about that, Keith. I was watching the tape from the Georgia game. You remember the throw he threw to, I think it was Isaiah Bolden, when he got cracked by Dan Jackson. And it was like he held him to the ball. But I was looking at that play. They had a high-low situation where they were putting Dan Jackson kind of in conflict. He was a single high over the top, or I think they was running too high, but he was kind of working downhill. And I think Malachi was occupied with something else. They had a backside post to Ryan Wingo, who was wide open. And it's just like you said, he could be pressing because it's the little details or nuance of playing quarterback where you identify Dan Jackson's not even trying to drop back. He's looking to rob something underneath. Yeah. So it's like if you pump fake that throw across the middle and the crosser to Bolden, you pull Dan Jackson up. Ryan Wingo had his guy beat. It was a score. If he launches that ball on the post, it's a walk-in touchdown. And it was those type of plays of just kind of missing that read, missing what was going on. And like I say, it could be pressing. I mean, look at the commercials. Every single one of those Dr. Pepper commercials he's done is talked about not needing the backup. Right? Well,
the Mannings, they just don't go anywhere, right? You cut on Monday Night Football, they got their own show. You're like, man, then you cut on
everywhere.
They got what Peyton Manning has the progressive commercials, right? The Peyton Manning is like, y'all everywhere. Okay, I need a break, right? I need a break at the end of the day. Try to figure some stuff out. But DP, let's keep this thing going in Florida, man. What are we going to talk about? The college football playoff quarterbacks who need to have big time games. DP, let's talk about that coming up next.
Hey, Locked On NFL Draft fans, I know you're like me and your holiday shopping list is, let's just say, far from complete. Well, if that's the case, I've got the perfect gift for the passionate sports fans in your life. Perhaps you've heard of IceShaker. IceShaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB, and will make the ideal gift. Created and used by the Gronkowski brothers, IceShakers has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with workout bottles. And this is the gift you've been looking for. Go to IceShaker.com and use the code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout to save 25% on your order. Guys, I have one right here. You know I don't have an NFL team, but Lamar Jackson is one of my favorite players in the league, and I had to get me a Baltimore Ravens one. This thing is strong, it's sturdy, and guys, it works great. So order your team-branded bottles at IceShaker.com and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. IceShakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market, IceShakers. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shot for being our everydayers. Keith, those college football playoff quarterbacks, got 12 teams in the playoffs this year. Something new we've never seen in college football. Those quarterbacks that are here that need to have big performances. Not saying that they got to win the national championship. They need to play well. Keith, I look at the situation. I go right to the 7th seed. I go to Notre Dame's Riley Leonard. I went into watching and studying his tape, and I came out more impressed than I thought I was going to be when I walked in. Early in the season, it felt like they were using him like Tim Tebow, Keith. It was run, Riley, run. That's what it felt like. Like he was running the ball. He's 6'4", 220, 230. Like he's got the good athletic profile. Like he don't get me wrong, he can run and he could do it. But it felt like around the middle part of the season, especially down the backstretch, they allowed him to throw the ball more. He had more confidence in his weapons. There was a throw that I was really impressed with. I can't remember who it was against. I think it was Army. They were running a cover 6. So you got the, quarter, half and everything. And that curl a flat defender, they had like a quick out route and a curl a flat defender, and he pumped the out to hold that defender sitting right there. And they had kind of like a smash concept. They had the slot receiver running the corner. And so he kept that. He held that corner, that curl a flat defender right there in the curl of flats, right there in the flats, and he was able to throw to the corner out to the 7. I said, that's good football. And it's like when he's like on time, he's in rhythm, and mechanics are good. He showcased that he has the arm talent and the accuracy. Also, he's a very underrated deep ball thrower, whether it's a goal ball on the outside or the slot fade. I came away more impressed with him than I thought I was going to be. And I think this is a guy who we could had talked about in the last topic as a day 2 quarterback. This run for him he's going to the Senior Bowl. He's a senior. This playoff run is everything for Riley Leonard. And it's just to give NFL decision makers a glimpse of what would it look like because Keith, you've been on you've talked to coaches, stuff like that. We all have. We know how coaches think. If I get that guy in my system, if we get him with our receivers and our offensive line, he's gonna be better than what he was in college. And I truly believe that statement. If you put him in some of these other situations, like I'm not gonna lie, and this is not sure like Quinn Ewers. You put Riley Leonard in Texas with Sark, I think they go undefeated this year. Like, he's that type of talent, and he's tough, gritty, and he plays like it. Like, he's not afraid to make throws. Where I look at Quinn at times, I'm like, Quinn, just rip it, So I think Riley Leonard, if any quarterback in the CFP needs to not make a statement, but have a big games and help their draft stock, it's Riley Leonard with Notre Dame.
Yeah, and I like that call out, DP. I'm gonna go with this, right? I'm gonna start at the very top. I'm gonna go K. Klubnik, Quinn Ewers. We got Will Howard, Dillon Gabriel, Drew Allar, Curtis Rourke.
Are you naming every quarterback?
Riley Leonard, Carson Beck, DP, all of them, right? I'm not skipping any names, all of them. If you are draft eligible and you are playing in the playoffs, you need to have a big game.
That's fair. That's fair.
You need to have a big game. It is because, like we talked about, after quarterback 2, right? It's up in the air as far as who can slot themselves at quarterback 3, and you have to enter the game, not enter the game thinking about that, right? But also understanding that, like, hey, I still have everything in front of me. Like, this is not defined. This is not written in stone, a sketched in stone, however they say it, right? It's a very sand type situation to where you can go in there and you can wash away everybody else's thoughts. Just now, DP, a couple weeks ago, we knew Drew Allar. We're aware of him. Thought that he had a lot of tools, right? But one performance against Oregon, people are saying might be the first round quarterback, right? Or maybe, and you never know in the draft process. Some people may sit there and say, "I'll take Drew Allar over Cam Ward." We've seen crazier things, DP, right? So I'm looking at all of these quarterbacks, like we talked about Dillon Gabriel, right? We talked about K. Klubnik being a dual threat guy. You go into Texas. From Texas, right? You go into Texas, walk away with winning that game. You turn things upside down at the end of the day. And that's an interesting conversation. So it's what player can start to build momentum and go in that playoff run. It seems like one of these quarterbacks, DP, are missing that notch on their resume that says straight up baller and champion, right? And that's going to go a long way for a quarterback. I would say even more so than in years past, as far as who can be QB 3, 4, and 5.
No, I love that. Like you said, being able to stamp yourself. None of the quarterbacks it's crazy because the best 2 quarterbacks are not in the college football playoffs.
That's why I'm not going. You know what? I'm not going to get on my tangent. But leave it alone.
I can see all of these things. Like, you got the wrong teams in.
I'm gonna leave it alone.
I'm telling you, that's why that loss to whoever Colorado lost. Oh, the Kansas loss. That's why that loss hurt so much because they would have been in
what it was? Kansas decided to be who Kansas should have been the entire year, the last 5 weeks, right? There was no reason y'all should have been 2-6 or something that. Y'all had a good football team.
Bad.
Literally,
they really do. They got playmakers all over the field, man. And I think
over the field.
To look at these quarterbacks, there's only 2 guys that have stamped themselves, and they're not in it. So what do you do now? To me, this playoff is the race for QB3. Let's be honest, Keith. Like, it's the race of QB3. Quinn Ewers, what are you going to do? Carson Beck, are you going to be healthy enough to return?
Yeah, because I'm worried about that too. I'm worried.
That shoulder didn't look good.
Yeah, it didn't.
That shoulder didn't look good, man.
I think they said that it was an elbow. Yeah, they said it was an elbow, but you don't know if that becomes ligaments or like,
he couldn't move it. Like, it was limp. And I was like, how is he going to take this snap and hand the ball off? You know what I mean? Without, like, I don't know how he did it. Like, but he's a warrior, right? You look at K. Klubnik. Or what are you going to do? Are you going to go out here ball out? Because they're one of my dark horse teams to win the national championship, Keith. And guys, for those, listen, if you're new here, we'll break down these games, the first round games next week. Okay, like, don't even worry. We'll get into those games and the prospects to watch, all that type of stuff next week. But for me, they're the dark horse to win the national championship. They have the talent to do so. Cade Klubnik is the X factor. So can Cade punch his ticket to the 2025 NFL draft and be QB3, right? Drew Allar, and I keep this crazy because I've been a Drew Allar guy for most of this season. Nobody else seemed like to be on the bandwagon with me. I was just strolling by myself, And then I'm looking at Twitter as the game is going on against Oregon, and I'm seeing people. I think I might be in on Drew Allar. I'm like,
why, DP? Let me say this. This is why you tap in with us, right? And because we actually do the work, right? And I think for a lot of people, it was probably the first time even looking at Drew Allar. Honestly, like saying, who is this guy, right? Oh, he's 6'5".
They had a quarterback. Like, who knew? Like, DP knew. You know what I mean? The Locked On NFL draft team knew. But I just like Drew Allar, same thing, man. Like, now people are on his bandwagon. Riley Leonard, Curtis Rourke. I gave him a top of the 4th round grade. You big. You're accurate. You do have functional mobility. Go out here against a good defensive line, a good defense, light them up. And who knows? You go against Georgia, they got Gunnar Stockton going on, and your defense can hold them to 0 points in the first half. just get in the red zone and put up points and don't make the crucial mistakes. He's got to get that. Which game was it? The Ohio State or Michigan? I think it was the Ohio State game. Curtis Rourke got to get that game off of everybody's mind.
Yeah, he got to get that off his list. Yeah,
he's got to erase that from his resume with a good performance. So, like,
somehow, some way.
You were right. Every single one of these guys, every single one of them in the college football playoffs, QB 1 and 2 are stamped, no matter how you have them ordered. But QB 3, this called as much as it's a race to the national championship, this is a race for QB 3 of the 2025 NFL Draft.
I agree with that. With DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast all by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated. Here I am, Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Guys, on tomorrow's show, we're going to get into Abdul Carter and what are some of the best NFL landing spots for this top 10 projected pick off the edge. Is he Micah Parsons 2.0? We'll talk about that on tomorrow. Also, some offensive line talk. We're going to look at this class. Who's OT1? Is there a true OT1 in the first round? We don't know. Maybe we do. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.